I have poured my heart and soul into this city. My playtime in this city at the moment stands at over 600 hours. There's got to be, countless thousands of buildings being placed down, many a night's frustrated because something didn't work, and many more hours of just pure enjoyment. Today we're going to push that playtime up to about 640 hours, and we're going to install a huge part of the city. So welcome to episode 62 of Europe in Detail. Alright, here we go. So that looked really easy, but I swear man, that took hours. So let's slow down a bit and we'll work on this area over here by the port. There's an abandoned rail line, or a couple of them, that I built in the first episode, and this bit here is an extension of that area. There's a lot of abandoned rail lines down here. I know you guys love abandoned stuff, me too, and we're going to do heaps of it here. Not only those rail lines, but there looks like there was a whole lot of service sheds down here at one point that have either been repurposed or are no longer in use. I'm also going to install a ridiculous amount of detail. Not that that should come as a surprise at this point, but let's start with that detailing on those service sheds that I mentioned at the start. You can see here they're all cut on a really weird angle that sort of follows the curve of the rail line. I found an appropriate building and sort of skewed it with procedural objects, and then just added one of Revo's prop doors on the front. Now we can start trying to make these lines look abandoned, and at the moment the gravel is way too white. I realise that. I change it with Theme Mixer eventually, but an abandoned line would be covered in grass, would be covered in weeds, would just generally look like it hasn't been touched for a long time. We're also going to put some staining down in the form of dirty decals and things like that. I'll put down a mossy decal underneath some of the grass as well. Just when you thought we were finished with them, I put down the 147th car park in Venice. There is seriously a massive amount of car parks in Venice, and I guess that's because no one really lives out here. All the people that work and stuff out here have to get here as well, and a lot of them probably drive from the mainland. But still, talk about car park city. So anyway, you can see there's a big patch of like abandoned land here as well that's got, it looks like a lot of detailing, but it really isn't. I've just used Surface Painter or Theme Mixer to change the ground color and then added in some grass and some shrubs. And this is what the area looks like on Google Earth. And we're going to zoom in here and have a closer look because we're going to start adding a bit more detail now. But I'd like to find out exactly what type of detail. It looks to me that this is a storage area for either loading ships or ships that have just unloaded. There looks like a lot of pallets and crates ready to go here, and there's also a storage for like piles of gravel and different materials like that as well. Almost like a mini quarry setup. Alright, there's a lot to take in there, so let's just start with the basics to start with. I mean things like the quarry wall, the surfaces that everything is put on, the roads coming in, and any retaining walls required. After we do all that boring stuff, then we can start putting down the cool stuff like the little props and things. So following Google Earth as closely as I can, I'm going to get this key wall exactly where I think it needs to go. This is going to help make sure that everything that's put down after this is put down in the right spot. Then we can come back and start installing some of the more major buildings, and there isn't many, admittedly. There's only one up here for instance, but I want to get it in early, and then we can start installing all the surfaces. We'll get these fitting neatly up against that key wall that I've used, and then I'll use Move It to make sure that it's level with the terrain that we have in this area. You know, it's been a while since we've worked with anything that even resembles a road, and it feels weird. There's a little wee access way that comes off the main road here that sneaks in and allows access for all of the trucks and the like to drop off or pick up their cargo. And rather than install a real road there at a really funny angle, I'm just going to use some decals here and make it look like there's a roadway coming off here. There's also a retaining wall here that I'm going to extend, and that's pretty important. It's following the angle of the road coming in. Next is the main freight office down here. Then there's a really simple but nice garden that frames this area along the roadway. So now I'm going to go back to that first retaining wall that I put down and build off the back of it. I want to make these little wee storage areas off the back of it for like gravel and things like that. And this is pretty simple really. I just use a prop pile of concrete or gravel and put it in the little cutouts we made. And as simple as this is, I think it's really effective. This looks cool as. So here we go with the props. I'm really going to start loading up now, and I'm pretty much just following what we see on Google Earth. There is a lot of stuff going on down here. Obviously I don't have all of that stuff in game, but I'm doing my best with what we've got available. So while we're talking about props, I want to give a quick shout out to props. I absolutely love detailing in this game, as you guys know, and so do many other creators that I love and follow. The community that's built up around this game over the last 8 years has allowed the likes of us detailers to go absolutely nuts, man. And sometimes it's really easy to take that for granted. A casual bin there, a casual rock there, a casual decal there. All of this stuff allows us to tie ourselves intimately and emotionally to our cities. As silly as it sounds, that is true. It's just awesome to be able to immerse ourselves completely into our cities with the likes of detailing. And what do you know? There's a casual bin. Or 7. So in between putting down bins everywhere and extending the office out a little bit, there's just random stuff everywhere, just random little props everywhere you look. It took a lot of patience and my computer needs a drinks break, but we got there in the end. Well, this area has certainly added to the prop count, but it also blends in really well with the rest of the city. We're only halfway through this little waterfront here by these abandoned railway tracks, but let's make our way up and around the peninsula. There's a lot of trees and gardens in this area, especially along the waterfront, so I'm going to finish putting those down, and then there's this little wee driveway or private little right-of-way that comes down towards the waterfront. It looks like it goes through some gates and stuff, and there's a bit of security, so I want to put that in. Again, I don't really want to add a road here, it just gets too complicated, so I'm going to use a little bit of prop concrete and make it look like there's a raised curb here. I can shape where I want the road to go or where it looks like the road goes with these bits of concrete. Apart from a couple of decals, that's pretty much it for this area. You wouldn't believe it, but there's actually more car parks down here. I swear I've never been more car parked out in my life. But all jokes aside, I'm really happy with this area. I'm happy to detail as we go and say that this area is complete. So here's a special little treat for all you legends that have stayed this long. We are going to start building San Marco's Square. And I've got to buy a bigger area, which is pretty rare. So let's do that and then try and find out where it's situated exactly in Venice. I'll use a concrete pedestrian path here to draw a rough outline around where I think the piazza sits. As difficult as this might be, and I've been through this before with a few other areas I've built, it's also really enjoyable. I know that I can overlay the map with a proper map from Google and find out exactly where everything sits, but I truly believe that's going to suck a lot of enjoyment out of this for me. I don't want this to be a paint by numbers, I like the guesswork. If one of these major landmarks is a handful of meters out of place, then it only forces me to be more creative to make the blocks in between work properly, which is pretty much in tune with how Venice is built. I mean, it's pretty clear that they weren't following any type of particular plan for most of it. So at this point it's roughly mapped out. Let's have a look at some of the assets I've got. Some of these are really quality and some not so much, but I'm going to make a point not to comment too much on that because I'm just really grateful that anything related to Venice is on the workshop. So forgive me for not critiquing these assets as much as some of you would like. Let's start with Doge's Palace. I'm no asset master, but this building looks fantastic. It looks just like the one that I'm looking at on Google Maps and the one that I see in all the pictures I've looked at. It's got this beautiful velvet-like facade to it, those beautiful sunflower-like cutouts in the Venetian style. Buildings like this are just a pleasure to place down, so I'll wriggle this into what I think is the right location. You guys may have also noticed the big tower in the background that I put down. That's called St. Mark's Campanile. It's the largest bell tower in Venice, and the current model has been reconstructed about 100 years ago because the original one collapsed in the earlier 20th century. And this is another really high quality asset. The scale, thank God, is bang on, and the textures and all the other stuff is really good too. So let's move on to the crowning glory of St. Mark's Square, St. Mark's Basilica. There is no asset that even comes close to resembling this on the workshop, let alone one that is modelled after it exactly. Due to the intricate nature of the building, I was really hoping it would be on the workshop because this is going to be so difficult to try and replicate if it isn't. It wasn't. And here we go, we're going to try and build it. I've got a selection of buildings here that have different facades that I think we can use one way or another, and yeah, we're going to use PO pretty heavily here to try and make this work. So in order for me to really wrap my head around how to do this, I've decided to go one story at a time. So with the bottom story, we've got this sort of archway that leads into certain doorways and it runs most of the way around the bottom. So I'm going to try and find a building that has those archways, which you're seeing right here, and then we're going to try and get the scale right and place this so that it sort of makes up the facade of that entire bottom story. There's a fair bit of work in moving things around with PO and moving that parapet and adding stairs in and all this type of thing, but it really looks good at the end, so I'm happy with the time invested. Once the bottom story is pretty well complete, I'm going to put some surface networks down on top of them and a little wee handrail around the edge that's matching what we see in real life, and this gives me a good platform to launch from for the second level. That second level, as you can see here, has a very simple white balustrade running around the outside of it, and you can see the second level is sort of offset from the first level a little bit. So I'll definitely look to get that handrail and surface in place, but before I can go any further, I actually need to start completing the back of the building, and this juts out a little wee bit. But man, it was so difficult to try and find the right building to do this with. I went through 3, 4, 5 of them in the end, and I'm still not 100% with it. But nevertheless, you're now going to watch me butcher a whole lot of fantastic assets to look for exactly what I need so I can put all this together. And it was at this point here that I lost everything that you just see me do in this episode. With the number of props and procedural objects and how modded this city is, I'm really starting to struggle. I've found a workaround for the save for now, but man, I'm really gutted because it's not looking good. I'm gonna keep punching, I'm gonna keep doing what I can to keep this series going because I'm so addicted to Venice. I know you guys are as well, and I'm truly dedicated to finishing it. At this point, the only thing that's gonna stop me is that save buggering out, and I want to be honest with you guys, yeah, it's getting tough. But here's some good news, guys. I'm gonna start a brand new series very shortly. It includes a map I'm gonna release on the Steam Workshop. That's right, I'm not done with CS1 yet. In fact, this next series is going to be next level, so stay tuned, guys. I hope you've enjoyed the episode. If you have, give me a thumbs up, I really appreciate it. If you're not, you could subscribe to me. I try and put out unique content, and I have a horrible accent, and I don't mind if you laugh at it. So sweet as, and I might see you on the next one.